Um, I think these are the stories that really are going to help you share your healingness. Believe stories heal. I believe stories bring people together. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all we have are our stories. And whether you're a writer or you're a podcaster or you're an actor or a stand-up comedian or a talk show host, it's like all the things that I am. Even voices, like I'm the voice of Professor Wiseman on Curious George for 15 years, or I might introduce Divorce Court to you on Divorce Court today. But it's all about stories, and that's what is humanity. And I think that whatever journey that you're on, never forget your story, because at the end of the day, y'all, that's all we got. And how many times has a good book or a story changed the life of a man or woman? Mm-hmm. So really take this journey very seriously. And as a journalist, you know, and it's you know, we're about to embark on a journey that's different than an adventure, because a journey is going to be part of the legend that you leave behind. So as you embark on these dreams, you know, what does that embarkment mean when you look out on that flat sea and you know it's not going to always be a flat sea? What is going to be your mission statement? What is your why about why I'm stepping out on this great vast sea and my boat is so small? And so, you know, you got to, you know, I was going back to the vision boarding. You know, some people, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I got on this thing where I was, you know, I do a lot of cool things. I'm a former investigative journalist, and back in the 80s, I was covering mobs and mayhem and murder in New York City for WABC, WNBC, New Jersey Network. You know, all of those, you know, days in the 80s. It was AIDS and homelessness and the mafia. And then, you know, in the 90s, I went into the talk show business. And the Rolonda show was very successful for 4 years, 93 to 98. We were working in 93, but we were on the air 94 to 98. And it was, we did some amazing things back when there were 1,000 shows on the air. I mean, there were literally 50. I think there were really 50. And, you know, all the big guys, the Geraldos and the Sally Jessies and the Oprahs were already there. And it was about, who are you going to be when it's your name up there? You know, you're not the ABC. So you learn about identity, and that's important. You know, you're going to be, that ocean is going to get wishy-washy out there, but you always have to know who you are. You know, like they say, like a tree that's planted by the river, I shall not be moved. Stand by your convictions. And so self-awareness and some really good, you know, provocation into who am I? How, you know, checking, you know, everybody checks in. How the kids doing? How your mom and them doing? Let's go see Uncle so-and-so in the hospital. You know, how's your dinner? How's the temperature? But how are you? Have you checked in with yourself? And I think that's important to do, because you always have to keep a gauge. You know, you send a boat out there in the water and it doesn't have any kind of direction. Well, you know what's going to happen to it. That's a dumb story. But when you see a embarking ship into a wild sea that's calm right now, boy, that's good adventure. I can't wait to hear that story. So really make it adventurous, and know that there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs, but that's part of the texture of our lives. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want it any other way, where there wasn't something that was worth the sacrifices that you're going to have to make and the hard work you're going to have to do, because you don't do these things without hard work. And listen, and a little luck of the Irish and the grace of God and good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, you know, you get there. But it's also that clear, I do believe in the subconscious mind. I'm a furious believer in the mind being a ballistic missile, and what you think about, you bring about. I do believe in manifestation. I do listen to meditation. I was saying I do some really cool things, but I just felt it, you know, a few months ago, I was like, but my soul is so hungry for more. And what can I manifest that's going to help me with my soul searching? And right about that time, I had given a talk in Washington, D.C., at the America Meditation Museum. And I was talking about Destiny Lingers, my novel that Dr. Maya Angelou endorsed. It's an interracial love story about this girl, this investigative news reporter in New York City. She's uncovered every big story in the city, but not paying any bit of attention to her new life or marriage. And she uncovers this long strand of red hair on her husband's bed pillow. And the only person she knows with bright red hair is her best friend, Eve. Well, you know where that's going to go. That and a hostage situation, a hurricane, a bunch of other exciting things, because it's a romance suspense novel. She goes down to North Carolina, this little island, to get her head together, meets this police chief, uncanny familiarity. Come to find out that's the little boy she was in love with, but couldn't be with because of segregation. Time moves on, but destiny lingers. And I wrote the book, and so they wanted me to talk about it because it's more than just a romance story. It's a story about humanity, the beauty of human nature, the ugliness of human nature, the beauty of Mother Nature. And I wanted to wrap all of this up and tell some family history too. But while I was there, because it deals with race and class and things that our country's dealing with, they asked me to come to India and to speak at the global summit, the Global Peace Summit, before 8,000 people. I was like, what? But I felt I had a message, and I felt that Dr. Maya Angelou had embraced my gift, and I just felt that was just a touch from God, and went there and got a chance to speak. But while I was there, I got to spend 10 days on Mount Abu studying meditation. You know, I found that it has helped me immensely in the craziness in our minds, especially when fear and doubt and those types of things. You know, people say, you know, that acronym, fear is false evidence appearing real. I say that's crap. Fear is very real. You know, it's an emotion. It's one that has saved us. That's why we're still here. You know, if we didn't have fear, we wouldn't know how to run out of a building and save our lives when it was on fire, or out the jungle or whatever. So fear serves a purpose, but it can be harnessed and maintained in the craziness in our heads that sometimes block us, you know, because some of us hear that grandma who told us we'd never be anything. You know, we think we're going to be like our daddy who was the alcoholic or whatever. The stories that we tell ourselves sometimes need to be quieted down. And I say part of self-awareness and self-improvement and self-growth is dealing with those. How do you deal with the mashugana in life? How do you deal with when things are crazy? How do you not jump off the roof? You know, you got to find some ways to really calm the mind and keep very clear. So touchstones are important. I still to this day wear the subway token around my neck. When I was a little girl, it said on one side, you know, 12, I knew I wanted to be here because people talked as fast as I did, walked as fast as I did. I said, I know I belong here. I was in North Carolina where everybody was so slow. They thought I was a ballistic missile. I was like, oh no, I need to live in New York. So when I was 12, that was it. And I wore this subway token. And on one side, it said New York City. And on the other side, it said good for one fare. And I said, I am going to make a life in New York City. And I did. When I moved to Hollywood, I remember when my show was ending, I went up to a little one of the guys that sells newspapers in Times Square. And I was like, what, you know, one of those melancholy looks like, well, I guess this chapter's done. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I said, God, send me a sign. And I figured Times Square is a pretty good place for signs. So I was wandering out Times Square and I'm pushing this little postcard wheel around and boom, there's this long sign that says Hollywood. And I'm like, why is there a Hollywood sign in the middle of Times Square? And I said, it's a sign. And I said to that man, I plucked that postcard and I looked at the man that was buying it and I said, sir, I'm going to Hollywood. And he said, well, good luck, little girl. And I bought that postcard. And do you know, I took it to Los Angeles and it sat in my corner office under the real Hollywood sign. So get your touchstones, things that are just little things that keep you focused, because you've got to keep that momentum going. You've got to keep your eye on that prize. Read that Napoleon Hill if you have to, or whoever, Tony Robbins or Gary V or whoever it is that motivates you, so that you keep, really keep your mind on your focused desire and dreams and what you deserve.
Well, I'm hearing a theme, it seemed to be a theme for me today with everyone that I've talked to, which is about choices. And there's times where we come to the end of the road and we say, okay, where are we going next? I know I've hit that a couple of times. And it's like, okay, where do I go next? And I joke, after a lot of margaritas after Girl Scouts, I said, okay, I'm going to become a speaker. It's like almost to that, and said, I'm moving south. And then we ended up moving to Southern California. So it's just really, really interesting. So I want to open it up to everybody. I'll unmute everybody because I muted y'all. And you can unmute yourself there as well. If you have questions, let Rolonda know who you are and real brief what it is that you do and what your message is. And I'm saying real brief because I know some of you like to talk long. So if you could do that, but again, let Rolonda know who you are. So who has some questions? No one? All right, Dave, I'll pick on you. You have any questions?
I was just putting a chat in there for Rolonda. I was typing when she interrupted me. So Rolonda, I was chatting with Connie offline because I think you and I met in New York in December. Were you at the Jeffrey Hazlett event?
Yes, of course.
You were in the morning and I was in the afternoon. So
right.
No,
yeah, that was a good event. That's another fun thing to do too, is to go to events like that where you meet great people, like we've stayed in contact. Thought leadership, surrounding yourself with, like your mama used to say, you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right. Well, that continues to be a lot of the truth, surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded. Because there's so many times we hear the naysayers, and a lot of times it's when we're doing great things, you remind others of what they're not doing. So you have to really watch what you take, your intake, and what you ingest, because, not everybody's pulling for you. So you really have to, that goes back to the clarity that I'm talking about as well.
Well, that's why I think what Connie's doing is important, because proximity is power, being around the right people and the people who will give you energy. And that happened to me last week. And all of a sudden I had like an epiphany last week in beautiful downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. So you never know when you're going to run into those kind of people. So I was texting, I was emailing, I said, I think I met her back in New York in December, but I'm not quite sure. And I'm glad that I validated that. So thank you for being on with us tonight.
Yes, indeed. Good to connect with everybody.
I'm heading to New York on tomorrow, so we'll see.
Good. Well, connect.
So, Rolonda, the one thing you talked about, and I know with some of our talent concierge members, some of them are new to the industry. Some of them have had very successful careers otherwise. And so it's that, okay, am I doing the right thing? Is this stuff that false? Am I wearing, a mask? Did I lose her? Oh, there you are. Okay. That impersonation syndrome that a lot of people have, and a lot of people have talked to me about that. So what is your insight on that? I mean, what's your nugget to help somebody stay, complete with their confidence, complete with who they are and what they have to offer their audience when they're out, speaking?
Well, I would say number one, impersonation will never work. And even your rugged edges their rugged edges are the things that are going to make you who you are. I will admit that when I was starting in the news business, I worked very hard to sound like Diane Sawyer. Come on, you're so not Diane Sawyer. You let one slip of the tongue come out and you're going to be Rolonda. And then you try to sound like Barbara Walters.
Right.
all of that. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. And I
Right.
do remember when I had come out of the news business because even many of you, if you were in New York, Sue Simmons used to laugh at me all the time. She said, this is back in the 80s when Mayor Koch was running New York. And she would laugh at me. She said, I'd be on the news and I'd be very articulate talking about Reykjavik and Gorbachev and the rest. And then they'd catch me cut away to Rolonda chasing Mayor Koch up the steps of City Hall going, and Mayor, what happened in the meeting? So I had to like learn how to tone myself and learn how to say it's cement and not cement,
Right.
But those were, but it was also my never losing my Southernness from North Carolina that kind of like gave me my edge in New York. And I just, when I'm talking to kids, I say, you know what? When I was a kid, they said, you have a voice that sounds like a frog. That your voice is so deep, you don't sound like a girl, And today I'm one of the top voiceover artists in America. And they said, you talk too much. Today I'm a talk show host. They said, you ask too many questions. Today I'm an award-winning journalist. They said, you too bossy. I'm a CEO. So all of the things that people say, and by the way, I do play frogs in animation very well. I'm Chief Frog Olba, by the way, in the Army of Frogs. I digress. But all I'm saying is that every single one of those things that I was called out on is every single one of those things that you know about Rolonda. So the story isn't always straight and pretty and rose-petaled.
Right.
It's gnarly and it's a winding road, and that's what people want to hear. We don't pay $15 a pop for a ticket to go to a movie to go see a bunch of people happy, dancing in the rain, all happy. We want to see struggle. We want to hear about the gnarly path, the path untold, all of that stuff that we embark on when we risk to live and live to, if you don't risk, you don't live. And, there are times when I say the risk of me staying here is a lot scarier than the risk of me going there to the unknown.
Right.
I think sometimes in our lives, and, I may have a few legs on a few of you, but, I'm not going to sit on my porch when I'm 100 years old going, I would have, listen, my friend the other day, I said, I'm so happy in my middle age to be trying new things, comedy. I'm moving to New York. I'm doing more speeches. I'm doing all this cool stuff in my middle age. She said, middle age? She said, you're about to turn 60. How many people 120 years old? And I went, okay. But she had a point. I mean, this is, at some point, it's not even middle age anymore. You better start making some decisions because this is it, as they say. And I'm not going to be 80 years old rocking on a porch going, I coulda, woulda, shoulda. If I'd only tried, I could have been a contender. No, I don't want any of my sentences starting with, I should have.
Right. Right. And I always take that from my mother. She was line dancing the day before she passed away.
What?
With her cancer, and she was struggling and in pain, but damn it, she was going line dancing.
I know it. God bless her.
And she was there. She was there. So what else? What else? Yes, Bronwyn.
Hi, Rolonda. I'm Bronwyn. I'm from Australia, so it's actually Tuesday for me. I'm an author and a simplicity expert. I'm really interested in just how much you've said no to through your career.
Ooh, oh my gosh. What a great question that is. I said no a lot. I said no a lot. And I'm, and as I look back, I'm really proud of that. And it hasn't always been easy. And I've left, well, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was doing the Rolonda show from 93 to 98, those were the heydays of talk TV. And many of you, if you watch my show, you may remember, we got kids out of gangs. I brought my journalism so we talked about AIDS and we talked about gay rights, and we talked about provocative things. We talked about women in prison. It went live in prisons and stuff. We did fabulous stuff. But then the tide changed, and people wanted people throwing chairs at people and pop, here's your baby daddy, and horrible, I thought, for me. People do what they want to do, because I'm not mad at Jerry and Maury and all. They make people money, and I'm proud of them. But that just wasn't my lane. And I had to say, the only way I could compete was to do that type of ambush, type of broadcasting, or to take my talents elsewhere. And let me tell you, when you're making a lot of money and you're a syndicated talk show host, it's you just don't say no unless it is something that you just cannot live with. And there was no way in the world, just when I had told my staff and they were so upset, I said, I'm not going to do any more of this tabloid type coverage and stuff. I'm from Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. I don't, my years at WABC Eyewitness News, an investigative reporter for Inside Edition, I can't do that. I'm a journalist. I don't do that to people's lives. I don't ambush people. I take integrity in what I do. And so I said no. And so that gave me an opportunity to tell stories in many other different ways. In Hollywood, I'm acting and producing, and wrote my novel, Destiny Lingers, which is now an audiobook and coming out as a screenplay. And so there are so many other things to do. I busted out a voiceover career. I'm Professor Wiseman on Curious George. You'll catch me on the new Legos cartoon, or it's not cartoon, animation. The new Lego City animation that comes out this Saturday. Just Google me, child, Google me. Go and have a Netflix night with me. I work with Tyler Perry on animation and Medea's Tough Love stuff. My audience is 1 to 101 now. But, if that was after the talk show. So there's sometimes saying no to one thing allows the universe to offer you things you can say yes to 1,000,000 times. One thing, it was sad to see it go, but there was no alternative, because I wasn't going to do that type of programming. But it allowed me a voiceover career, an acting career, a producing career. I became an author and a novelist, a speaker. Honey, I dig down in that trunk, that toy trunk that God gave me, and I find whatever I need to work with at that time. I'm a hustler. And I think in these changing times, I think it's a delight to do that, because you pick and choose what you want to do. After that talk show, I said, Lord, I'm not going to ever work for another person. And I've been 23 years now working for myself. And that comes with good years and bad years. But I'm going to tell you, there is nothing like stepping out. Look, taking that leap of faith, but you got a plan. You got to have a plan. And look, it doesn't have to be doesn't have to be 6 months. Just what are you going to do the next 3 weeks? What are you going to do tomorrow? What 10 things can I do tomorrow that are going to put me closer to what I'm dreaming about? I can make 3 phone calls. I can study 2 things on YouTube, because do not underestimate Miss YouTube and Google, y'all. That's a whole universe in itself. I'm and look at the skills that you have. For some of us at this time in our lives, it is our turn to be teachers, be counselors, be leaders in some way of thought. So look at Udemy and Teachable and some of these places where you can go, and if you can whittle out a stone, honey, you can teach that on some of these online courses, and you can take online courses. So I think in this day and time, there's a plethora, there's no shortage of what you can do to reinvent your life. And if now is the time, and you know it, because reinvention isn't just a luxury cruise. Sometimes it's the Titanic, and the reinvention is that boat we jumped off to save our lives. Sometimes you have to do it because change is inevitable. Businesses change, decisions change, people change. Your wife might come home and say, you know what, I don't love you anymore. I'm in love with Rolonda, the pool boy. You never know. Life can surprise you. You never know what might happen. So I say always have a backup plan. Always look and find those gifts within yourself, because running around here looking at newspapers and begging people for jobs is not where it is. It's inside of you. You just need to be still and get your mind straight and quiet and do whatever you have to do. Touchstones, vision boards, classes, whatever it is, to find out what your passion is and what is the raison d'etre, the reason to be. Why do you do what you do? And that'll help you find your calling. I bet you'll stumble upon it before you know it.
So Kevin, calling you out, who by the way, everyone is also a guest on Criminal Minds.
Oh, did I cut you? Did I see you all cut up? Or were you cutting up people?
No, Rolonda, they like to shoot me a lot. So I was the nice guy sheriff. They decided to shoot right between the eyes.
Oh, man. You know something?
2 episodes.
I died in my first production this time. I got 3 movies coming out, and they're all thrillers. These children love thrillers these days, and thank God they're including me as doctors and mamas and all that. So anyway, I die in one of them. And I was like, oh my God, it was my first time dying.
Well, they kill me all the time.
Freaky. They just shot you in between the eyes.
Yeah, after 2 episodes, they're like, all right, we got to kill this guy. Bye.
So Kevin, I was calling you in, putting you on the spot, because Rolonda, you talked about one thing, and I talk about this a lot when I'm doing my mentoring programs, to stay in your lane. And you had brought that up, to stay in your lane. And Kevin, because you're an actor too, and you're acting, speaking, writing books. Do you continue to stay in that lane with the different projects that you're working on? Now, this is for both of you.
Do I stay in that lane?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not as a speaker. You mean in life? You're talking about?
In life, because we all have that personal vision of who we want to be, what we want to do, and being true to ourselves. Do you stay focused in that lane as well? And and sometimes say no when it doesn't really fit to.
Oh, I'm a monster advocate of saying no. It's a chapter in my book, and it's something that when you're, aside from being mostly a television on camera performer in Los Angeles, you have to learn how to say no, which comes from the concept of knowing what you want in life and also knowing who you are. But there's a difference in saying no, however, because there's a difference in saying no just for the sake of saying no, but saying no with a reason. I don't want, when I speak, if I speak about no, or if I consult somebody on no, I don't want someone to say no simply because that's not where they think they're going, or simply because it's not something they've ever done before. Whether you say yes or no, I'm just a big advocate of making sure you are clear from the core of your soul why it is you're saying no, because quite frankly, when you're not successful or when you're not doing something early on, no maybe is not necessarily the best choice. I think, as Rolonda said, no gets much harder when you have done stuff. And the era of Hollywood that I've gone through, besides owning the company, besides writing books, and besides speaking, just on camera stuff, Hollywood's changed. That white guys in my category, because I'm not a star, very rarely are found anywhere besides the first or second on the call sheet. So it's very difficult for me to actually audition much anymore, because I will only do guest star, recurring, or series regular pilots. Mm-hmm. And so I get asked, which would be no shock, and it's completely normal for everyone's career. It doesn't matter if it's a speaking gig, if it's Bronwyn, it's Ottopia, if it's Dave. There's going to be a time, and I'm certain that Dave has done this, and Lord knows Rolonda has, where I've been asked a lot the last 3 or 4 years to do stuff I simply will not do. And it's okay with me to say no, because I'm not saying no out of arrogance or purely out of ego. I'm saying no for a very specific professional reason. And that's maybe not just staying within my lane, it's staying within the lane within my lane. As far as a lane that has to do with my on-camera career, there's just a certain set of things that I will not do because I work too hard to get where I am, And if I never get any further than the 50 guest stars I've done, I'm okay with that. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what no comes down to, is just be clear you're not looking in your rearview mirror too much, especially when you start creeping past 40, 45, 50. You don't want to be looking back going, man, should I have done the whoop-de-doo with the guy in the thing and a hoo-hoo dilly? So I'm a big advocate of learning for yourself how to say no and why, for sure.
And
there are times when you just know that you just should say no to this. But you think about, how could saying yes to this benefit me? What position might this put me in where I'm not right now, closer to my goal? It might give me a little more press. It might give me a voice out there. It might help me buddy up to this network or this star that might help me with the movie. You got to look at it, not just, life is a chess game. It's just not always about doing it right there. And sometimes you'll take, 2 steps backwards to take 4 steps forward. And each thing is, and like you say, when at some point in life, you just don't, you don't have the luxury to say no to just everything, but you certainly don't ever sell out your integrity and all the things like we were just talking about that you've built over so many years either.
Well, I know that happened for me more so from, I was speaking, and then, and I stepped back to take a break when my mom passed, and taking care of her for a little bit of time. But I took a step back where I didn't want to work with hundreds of people anymore. And it's part of me changed as well, and my integrity and how I was looking at my role and what it is that I wanted to do and what fulfilled me. And that was turning that and working with a core group of individuals. And even for members of the agency, I've turned people away, people that have actually got angry with me. I'm like, angry. And I'm like, look you just don't fit. And you and I are just not going to connect. So no, I had to turn them away. So I think it also comes with age of where we're at in our life as well. Evans, I wanted to ask you, more along that line, because you're a bit younger, and I know that you've had some different changes or even challenges in your business over the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on saying no and really evaluating an opportunity?
Well, I appreciate you thinking I'm younger. I mean, I am 25. If anybody's wondering, we're going to go with that because it's being recorded.
Well, my son said I'm 22, so we'll go with that too.
25.
So, not even close. It's interesting, right? So, Rolonda, I'm really glad you're here tonight, and I've written a page full of less about notes and more about things you've said and quotes, and I have a whole page full. So, a lot of great things. Thank you for that. And I love how you're integrating your faith and never forget your story, make it adventurous.
I'm glad you noticed that. I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, there's a question for me coming on that in a minute, if that's okay. But it's funny. I've been in sales now going on 15 years, Fortune 15 companies as well as small IT startups. And what's interesting is the more and more you perform, there's an appreciation from the organization. But at the same time, the moment that you're not at the top, it's noticeable, right? And in my line of work, when you get paid when you sell, there's a lot of questions and things that you can do, right? There's a lot of ways to approach your business and how you go get that deal done to feed your family and make that dollar. So staying within the vein that Kevin said about the lane within your lane is setting those boundaries, right? There's certain things that I will not do to go get a dollar. There are deals that I will walk away from. And I found that the people who can do that and are okay, and Kevin, like you said a minute ago, being in a place in your life and your career where it's just not worth it has been invaluable, right? I think right now we live in a society where everybody feels they've got to be just like the next person, and they're willing to stab and cheat and steal to get there. So I think that integrity piece has been awesome. It's been a challenge at times too, right? I went through a lawsuit a couple of years ago, and that was difficult, right? It was very difficult to come out of that and feel like I'd been villainizing something. But with a bit of time and some faith and doing the right thing, things kind of come back around. So, even in sales, we have to say no. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to sleep with yourself. And I can just remember saying, and shows are a sales gig too. I mean, it's like a show business. And I just said, I just can't be in a business where I feel like I have to go and take a shower after everything I create.
Right.
And, it's your name at the end of the day. And, and I just, and I was very proud of that. And that's what has stood as a legacy. So sometimes, the tough decision is what is going to make you who you are. And, a brand isn't NBC, ABC, CBS, or whatever you call it. You are your brand. Praise God. I got the brand Rolonda with an exclamation point behind it. That's my brand. So it's like, you can't hide behind the shell of somebody else's business as your brand. You are your brand. Yeah. And if you really hone that, it doesn't matter where you go. You go work for Sunoco, you're gonna, if your name's Brad, you're gonna Bradize it. Whatever you bring to the table, wherever I go, whether I'm doing my voiceovers or I'm doing stand-up comedy or I'm doing another book or I'm doing speeches, it's still Rolonda. It's still her brand of storytelling. So and that you can count on. That way, when you stay in your lane, whatever you do, you're in your lane. But you're doing Rolonda, or you're doing you, Evan. You are your lane. You are your best kept. Listen, the worst thing you can be is the world's best kept secret. So get in your lane and start running so the audience can see you.
Can I ask you a question about Rolonda?
Yeah.
So I'm in South Carolina. I'm just north of Columbia, a little town called Blythewood.
Okay.
So the Carolina stories hit home for me too here. So you've talked about a lot of different things. How have you been able to integrate faith and philanthropy and using those gifts and skills you've been given, especially in a world that doesn't always want to hear about that, doesn't want to see it, and like you said, it doesn't really sell, right? How have you been able to stay true to that piece specifically?
Well, I tell you what, I don't give them a choice. I just believe that, one of the things people in New York, when I was an investigative reporter, used to say, you do good death, because I would have people crying because people would look at the news as, 2 dead, 3 fled, 16 bled, so it led. And I said, wait a minute, that's not enough. Somebody died and somebody's not coming home for dinner tonight. And what is the least common denominator about that? I mean, I think in all of us, all human beings, whether you're in sales or news or speaking or whatever, medical field, we all want the same thing. We want our bellies full, our babies fed, and our houses warm. And if we all, I think, bring more pathos and more empathy into everything that we do, and look at the gifts that we've been given, that they are there for a reason. You were implanted with magnificent gifts for humankind, for mankind, for womankind, for humanity. I mean, and to hone your gift, gifts don't count unless you share them and they're received. So I think as part of our gifts is being able to help people take a spoonful of sugar and help the medicine go down, and to tell stories and to present ideas that are humane, that cross, that's why diversity and inclusion is so important, because we learn different things, different ways by the way somebody else walks in their mind. But that's the world we live in. And I think that, in such a divisive world, if you can take your gifts to bring things together, I know couples who've come together and they've invested in clean water because that's what moves them. There are people who are, you can't have a business today that doesn't have a humanitarian leg to it, because the millennials are not even having it. If you don't have a bicentennial moment for a whale, or save the oceans, or start organic fields and save monkey, whatever it is, you don't have that in your business, they're not working for you. That's one of the first things they ask. It's amazing. So there is a philanthropic wave going along. While we are divisive and killing each other, there's still, even with our children, our millennials are still our children. They are coming up with a new paradigm and a new way to build your business, mission and paradigm. So yeah, I think that ethics, economics without ethics is not right. And if you want to take it all the way there, we are so full of abundance. Going back to that clutter I was talking about an hour ago, we got so much. I tell people, I took sheets and blankets to the homeless people on the street under the bridges. They need socks, little things we can do to start a ripple effect of good. I always end my podcast by saying that go out there and do something good. It's needed right now. We don't have the luxury of any other sort.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question if we have a few minutes.
Yes, Adipia, I was just going to say, let's go with you.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
You have questions, and then we'll wrap it up after that.
Okay, great. So my question is how, because I think, well, obviously you're an actress and there's some other people that it's like performing. I'm new to this, by the way. Mm-hmm. How do you maintain that sense of it still being you versus getting into character? Like, is there a line? Is it always you? Is like, how does that work? Because I know that to a degree, like I've done one stage talk and I know that something shifted when I got on stage. I don't know what, but it was still me. Mm-hmm. And so I see also a lot of people that are very different than they are truly. And for me, it's really important for me to be me. So how does that work? I didn't formulate a proper question, but it's really about like, are you always in character or are you always yourself, and where does one end and the other begin?
I don't know why I thought of this, but many, many years ago, I interviewed Erica Kane on All My Children, who's Susan Lucci. And it was one of those times she was on a string of losses, not really losses, but non-win with the Emmys and all that.
She was getting nominated and not winning.
And about a gazillion times. So I got to interview her, and I said to her, when do you stop being Erica Kane? And she says, as Susan Lucci, I'm very different from Erica Kane. She says, but Erica Kane comes in handy sometimes. She says, like everybody in her family were skiers. And she said she did not ski. And one time she got stuck up on top of this mountain and she told herself, what would Erica Kane do? And she said she stuck that pole in that snow and she zipped down that mountain with grandeur. And I said, and I know the fur was flying. But, I think that when you're a performer, it's the fear and anxiety when that red light comes on, or that, excuse me so much, you guys. I'm so sorry. You start connecting all of these devices.
We're all looking. Whose is it?
I know. It's like, I'm so sorry. I wish, the thing is behind the thing, so I can't turn it off. So I think that as performers, we all tap it, that fear and anxiety is good because that's part of the performance fuel. And I think there are many sides of us. When I'm doing a character, I'm not that character, but there are parts of me that I tap into to tell that character's story. That character has been written for a specific reason. I mean, I've played crazy cougars. I've played forensic pathologists, I've played principals and raggedy women, but each one of those characters are symbolic. They mean something. They bring something to the table. So I think part of the method of acting is when we find something in our own lives that can tap into the pain or the joy or the discovery of our character. It might be a totally different thing, but you remember that time when that man stood you up on your birthday. And you could put that pain into that character. I think in terms of speaking, I think that what really drives me with speaking is not so much being a character, but being very clear about what it is I came there to say. And what it is I want them to take away. And what is their action plan coming from me? I think that if you really have a passion for saying something and standing for something, and letting people hear how you've put that together and hope that it inspires others, then I think that alone will help you find the way. And every day we're different characters, honey. I mean, I talk to the mailman totally different than I do to the doorman and to my boyfriend and the one I'm flirting with. I mean, everybody's got a different character for what we do. So even in your telling stories, I mean, part of even in my stand-up comedy, I'm telling the truth. You know, I talk a lot about dating online at this age. You want to feel as weird as a 10-legged dog. Yeah, I go into a character that you have never seen because that's the way I talk to myself when I'm talking about being a menopause woman on a dating cycle. You know, so yes, you find different characters to express yourself. And sometimes, you know, what's interesting when I'm watching, you know, interested is interesting. If you're interested in your story and all the characters, honey, I'll start making up voices to go with my characters because that's interesting. That means I'm interested in my story, and that's going to make people watching interested in it and enchanted and entertained.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in infotainment. You know, you can inform people while you're entertaining them, and there's nothing wrong with making people laugh. One of the biggest hurdles I had to cross coming out of the news business like this and being a broadcaster and then turning into a talk show host where it was named Rolonda. I remember the great Roger King, who founded Oprah, Jeopardy, and Wheel of Fortune, Inside Edition. He would call me and say, "Stop being that reporter." He said, "I want you to be Rolonda." And I said, "Yeah, but you know, I got this loud voice. It's a little raspy. I'm real country and don't always put a G at the end of my words." And I laugh really loud. And he goes, "I don't care. That is Rolonda, exclamation point." So when you run in there, birthday girl, you do it unabashedly, unapologetically. Be who you are. And I think that's authenticity. And that's also the fun of it. You know, all of us who are speakers love to have a little shock value. And a lot of times people don't expect me to be as country as I am, or as loud as I am, or as funny as I am, or as poignant, or, you know, whatever it is. They don't expect that. And that's part of their discovery. And that's why they'll pay for another ticket to come see you. Because you, as you're learning about yourself, continue to evolve and develop and reveal. And that's part of the journey of life, much less business.
It's interesting because when I first started out, because I think you all know, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally. I was told to take my country out.
That's right.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you heard it. And Kevin,
you go to Maggot, then Iowa, they just ship all the people out there and try to get the America out of them.
Get that country out. We do have one more question. Kathy's on the phone, Kathy Heim, and she's listening on the phone. So Kathy, you have another, are you on now?
Yeah, I'm on now, and I'll
Okay,
make it
good.
really quick. Hi, Rolonda. Thank you. So
Hi,
I just want to touch a little. Hi. So I just want to. I love your energy. I just want to touch on something that that you mentioned earlier. You talked about facing adversity at times, and I think that all of us are, you know, we're kind of on a mission or purpose to evoke change and to, you know, step, I guess, outside of society's box, so to speak, in order to do that. So with that, you had mentioned that you face that, and I see that, I'm very new at this, but I've also seen that already, you know, some of those people that want to, you know, the naysayers, the haters, whatever you want to call them. And how do you handle yourself internally in order to get past that negativity and get past that adversity? And I know I've talked to Adipia, and we had a little conversation about this once, a long conversation. Do you have any advice for us?
Well, you know, when you say that, I remember Cat Williams, the hilarious comedian, has this thing. He says, "I don't wake up without 14 haters waiting for me." And I thought that was hilarious because they're going to be waiting anyway. And I would be worried if I didn't have haters waiting. They're going to be haters. And let me tell you, the sad thing about it is most of the naysayers and haters are the ones that are closest to you, the people that you really expect to support you. And so, you know, success and the things that you want to do in the leadership positions that you want to do it in, it's a lonely place. And there are times when you cannot be surrounded by people like that. So when we talk about the gift and the art of saying no, That's a major time you need to use that
Mhm.
skill. Now, there are people I will not have anything to do with. I'll go say hello to you at church or say, go and ask you how your mom and them is, but I'm not hanging out with you because I don't want, you ever known some people so negative, they can walk in a room and develop a picture. And, you
Unfortunately, yes.
just
Yeah.
don't need to be around people like that. So
Mhm.
that's no. You know it's good for your energy. And you know in your gut those girlfriends who smile in your face and can't stand you because you're cute and you're talented and you get attention wherever you go. You can't help that. That's how you were drawn. So you're not going to change who you are. And how dare you even think about, shrinking for some idiots. So don't, that's not even part of the. So, to get rid of that type of energy, because, if you're on a path, and we don't have a long time here, folks,
Yeah.
if you're on a path, you really don't have time for high school bullshit. Like that lady said, ain't nobody got time for that. And you just read your things, I say the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. He prepares a table before me in the presence of mine enemies and anoints my head with oil. I am not, you've got to have those affirmations. You've got to have your faith because, it's biblical that there are going to be haters out there, and Judas and all, I don't know, whatever you study in historical, legendary proof that they're haters, it's just a part of life. And I think that I've become a warrior spirit about it. And I feel really sad, especially for women who don't support other women. And I won't have anything to do with it. I will not.
And we've had long conversations about that.
I just wipe my hands of it, will
Yeah.
not have a thing to do with it. And I take a real power position to protect myself.
Yeah.
And just walk on the other side of the street.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you. I love it.
Thanks, Kathy. Kevin, did you have something?
Kathy, I wanted to, if you don't mind, although we've never met, I wanted to add a little something to that in the sense that because I'm from such a small place in the South, and because I also lost the accent and dialect a long time ago, I would tend to share with you that whether it's faith or whether it's the haters, especially if you are coming into speaking or coming into this a bit later in life from a very, very different career in some way, there's no question that what Rolonda said, most of the people who are probably going to be your haters are unfortunately going to be people that are probably fairly close to you.
Yeah.
Because the reason for that, in my opinion, is that human beings in general, like to be very comfortable and they like to keep things simple and they don't like much of anything to rock the boat. So especially if somebody has known you for a fairly lengthy period of time, the fact that you're going to now all of a sudden break a shell and go sort of become this cocoon butterfly that looks different and sounds different than the person they've known, it actually, to me, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's the fact that they actually might have to expand themselves, and they simply don't want to have to do that because that's too much work. And so they want to try and kind of keep you in the box where they believe you live. Sometimes family members do this when we don't see them for very long, or we don't see them but once every 2 years at a holiday. It's 30 years later, and they still like to try and pigeon you as 20 years old as opposed to 50 years old and who you become. So I think, and it's hard because emotionally it's really hard when it's someone you've known for a long time and they seem to be either questioning you, doubting you, flat out putting your ass down, or almost trying to get you to not do something. It's much more about their uncomfortability and not what they see in you. That was just a quick 2-minute sidebar, in my opinion.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All good stuff. And for us Southern folk, I'm sure if we get in the room and have a couple martinis, that twang will definitely come back quick.
You got to stand for something. You got to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I'm just gonna end with this. The one thing that resonates, and of course I know it has a lot to do with the people that I've chosen to work with and invite into our agency, and to be your rep. This comment was said to me in a variation, but it was said to me over the last week. I've heard it several times. I heard it again today by someone that wants to join the agency. And the reason he said that he wants to join our agency and the other people too is because we give back. We're not just here to stand up on a platform and just lecture to someone. We give back, we have integrity, and we have love for each other. And I believe that goes back to my mission, which is that we are all unstoppable together. So I want to thank you all for that. And that's all we have for today. We have another great guest coming up next month. I'll share more on that soon. I'm looking at my notes here. A lot of good stuff that I wrote down today. I also recorded the conversation today. We lost about the first couple minutes of it, and if anybody wants a copy of the recording, let me know. It's always good to listen back at it as well. And Rolonda, my lady, thank you for being here with us today. Sorry that we lost you in LA, but my next favorite city, New York City.
Oh, yes. It's wonderful. Yeah. It's a joy to be back in the saddle.
I bet. Well, love you. Love you all. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rolonda.
Thank you.
Kevin, really quick. Did you want to connect tomorrow morning, or do you want to get together tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, because it's our off week? Okay, talk to you tomorrow morning then. Okay. See y'all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Kathy.